Hello, my name is Dr. David Oualaalou,
And my name is Dr. Ross Stewart.
and today we're going to be talking about a follow-up to a video we did a few months ago about the Belt and Road Initiative that China has embarked on.
A mystery has been solved, David. The biggest undertaking in mankind's history is now underway. The Belt and Road Initiative from China, which builds an infrastructure for trade worldwide. And the mystery that's been solved is who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, well, that is a key question as to how a project of that magnitude that goes through 68 countries and covers about 65% of the world population. And when you engage in a project that massive that can cost between 4 and 8 trillion dollars. So the question becomes, how is China financing this project? And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
You know, we might take a look at the balance of trade between the United States and China.
Well, that's correct. The deficits, the trade deficits between the US and China. And just to give our viewers an idea of what we're talking about here, is the deficit has been going up since 2004. Back in 2004, the trade deficit with China was about around $50 billion. Then and then around 2006, moved up to less than $100 billion. In 2018, the trade deficit was $323 billion. So, and the question becomes is, if this trade deficit is going up, with China's buying treasuries, what are they getting in return?
Well, they're getting spendable dollars.
All the dollars from the US. And for them, rather than buying bonds here in the US, whatever, they are using the dollars to expand on the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, which makes perfect sense now as to how China is financing this global undertaking.
You know, this understanding, at least in my thinking, is a real game changer again. Now we know how they're doing it.
Well, it is indeed, because you're talking about a massive project, you know, in the history of the world.
It's the biggest project ever undertaken by humankind.
Yeah, with something that has far-reaching applications or consequences to it.
Oh, huge!
Yeah, because the whole project started since 2012, and it's supposed to end on 2049. But the idea of how the whole project started in 2012, it was just a conversation about it. In 2013, it was the initiation of the project. In 2014, it was the preparation of it. In 2014 was the preparation. In 2015, it started to put the dots on the letters, as we say, as far as moving forward with that, where the route is going to go. Because this project, just for our viewer to have an idea about how massive this BRI project, we're talking about ports, we're talking about railroads, we're talking about highways, we're talking about telecommunications, we're talking about, it's massive.
Access to natural resources that are almost impossible to get out of the country right now, they're going to be able to get them because they're building the infrastructure to take them.
And exactly, that's and to embark on something like this, you require some massive financial backing. And China figured out that, hey, how about if the United States pays for that? And that's exactly what is going on right now.
Well, one of the things it puts in play is who's going to have the world's biggest economy?
Well, this is for sure paving the way for China to take over the world economy. I mean, we don't want to admit this one in the West. We don't like to even say it, but we can. It's a fact. It's a reality.
Well, what happens when the digital yuan is used to parley back and forth between all these different countries?
Well, that's another dimension to all this, because mind you that, just for our viewers to know, that the US dollar has been the dominant currency by which global trade is conducted. And of course, this one stems from 1944, the Bretton Woods, in which the US dollar system was installed. Fast forward to about 1970s, when the United States made a deal with Saudi Arabia about oil will be transacted in the US dollar. That was the interesting aspects to all this. That's what kept the US dollar as strong as it can be. Now, with China getting into this right now, as far as the BRI and how it's moving, and the introduction of the digital yuan, you can just see where this is going. Basically, what China is going to do is they're going to dethrone the US dollar. And it makes perfect sense from their perspective that if China is doing business with India, and India doing business with Singapore, and Singapore is doing business with Spain, and Spain is doing business with Egypt or Iran or what have you, you're going to be thinking in terms of, okay, which currency we're going to be using here. The interesting aspects about this is with this massive project, you will assume that there will be so many banks involved.
No way. If it's the digital yuan, we know the bank.
It will be one bank managing all this.
The People's Bank of
China. That is correct, which makes more sense from the Chinese perspective to move forward with the digital yuan, assuming that, because China is already in its bilateral trade with some countries, like with India, with Pakistan, with even Iran, and even Saudi Arabia. In some transaction between the two countries, the transactions are not conducted in the US dollar. They are conducted in the Chinese yuan.
By the way, that makes for a much greater efficiency as opposed to multiple banks, one bank.
That's correct. And it's already, interesting enough, is that it's already in Africa, where the BRI is going to go through. Of course, there are already applications now on the iPhones for the digital yuan that is tied to the
People's Bank?
The People's Bank of China. That is correct. That's what they're doing. So we can just see, and we will, just for our viewer, we will provide a map of the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, just to give you an idea of where this route is going to go, where this belt throughout the countries that's going to go, which makes perfect sense from the Chinese perspective that, hey, we might as well just plan all this and have the US pays for it. And this is where is at the core of the US-China trade deficits.
What do you think the impact on you, me, and you is going to be?
Well, the impact is going to be now China's going to be dictating down the road later on. We're not talking about next year or whatever. It's just going to, once you control the global economy, and China has all the leverage to do so. Basically, what the impact is going to be for us is that if the U.S. administration or subsequent U.S. administrations do not cut a deal with the Chinese, that's going to impact us as far as the purchasing power, because the goods is going to go up, skyrocketed. We already start seeing the price of commodities going up and so forth.
True.
So my thinking is, or my opinion rather, is that the U.S. administration, either the next one or the subsequent ones, they're going to want to make sure they have a deal with the Chinese where American consumers can have access to cheap Chinese product. Because remember, we are a society that does not produce a lot, but we consume a lot. So when you go to Walmart, or you go to Home Depot, or you go to Target, where are those products from?
China.
China. It's just common sense. So Chinese do understand that this kind of dynamics, and this is where I see things going for us, at least as a consumers, that the U.S. administration will have to cut a deal.
Do you think that it's going to impact us personally? Because they will cut a deal. Even with the Trump administration, the amount of products purchased from China rose in spite of tariffs and other things.
Yeah, well, it will impact us in a way that when you start to realize that even like the arguments for those, well, we're gonna have the jobs back here in the U.S., that didn't work, didn't happen. No. So you still, when I see you, the corporation, the entities or whomever, you're still gonna depend on the Chinese market because Chinese market is big. And with what they are doing, when you take into consideration the agreement they just had with the Europeans on the investments.
Right.
When you take into consideration the agreement they signed on the RCEP following the ASEAN meeting, which we did a show about that one.
Yeah, recently.
So when you take all that into consideration and you evaluate the sheer size of the project itself, the Belt and Road Initiative, 68 countries and 65% of the world population. So you can just see where it's going.
So if you're an investment firm or you're looking for your corporation to do business with China, what should they be paying attention to?
Well, they just have to, for U.S. corporations, they'll have to really pay attention to how far, for example, China and Europe will come close to in their business dealings, you know, because now the market is open for the Europeans. And I'm also thinking in terms of Europeans have decided to move forward.
With China.
Yeah. And the reason being because when you start to look at in the emerging economies, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Myanmar, in Vietnam, in all that part of the world which has the highest concentration of population, and the whole Southeast Asia, and the markets there. So China's kind of thinking in terms of, okay, that's our market. We can take care of that. That's why European, I believe, decided to cut the deal and agree with the Chinese about these investments is because they're seeing that that's where the next market is going to be.
You know, this is an important understanding as to who's really paying for this. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other videos. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
And as always, stay informed. Till next time.